In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to create a simple rig of our Suzanne monkey head here, but with one caveat. I'm mostly going to show you how to do things the long and manual way, with the computer doing a minimal amount of the setup. This is to give you a better understanding of how it all works, so when things don't quite go as expected in your own projects, you'll have a better chance of knowing how to fix them. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to create a simple 3-bone armature for our monkey head. We'll create the vert groups and the parenting manually. I'll teach you a few things about the modifier stack, and we'll dive in head first with the weight painting. But don't worry, I'll explain weight painting properly in a dedicated lesson later on. So let's get going, shall we? So I'm going to start from a blank file, a fresh scene here. So I've got everything selected. I'm just going to delete it because we don't need anything. And then I'm going to jump to the front view and make sure that my cursor is at the world origin. So now my cursor is in the middle here. I'm going to add in a monkey head. So I'm going to hit Shift A and then choose Mesh Monkey. And this is the Suzanne monkey head that we're going to rig up here. Now, because I'm going to do everything one way and properly, I'm going to name it. So let's just name this Suzanne Geo. I just hit F2 to bring that up. And then I'm going to copy this. So let's just double click there and paste it there. So there we go. We've got our geometry. And let's smooth this out by giving it a subdivision surface. Now I'm only going to use a minimal amount of shortcuts and hotkeys for this. And I'll show you the long way of doing a lot of things. So our modifiers are here. I'm going to choose that one. And the first one I want to choose is a subdivision surface. So that's giving it more geometry and smooth it out a little bit. But I want to get rid of this jagged shading, the flat shading. So I'm going to hit W, but if you're left click select, you just hit the right mouse button, and then I'm going to choose Shade Smooth, so now it's all smooth. And that's my subdivision surface there in the stack. And I'm going to add one more. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to delete half of the mesh and show you how the mirror modifier works in conjunction with the armature modifier. So I'm going to select half our mesh. I'll jump into wireframe for this, and just box select with the B key. Select half the mesh, and make sure that you don't select the middle verts, and then delete them all. So if we jump back, if we jump back into solid mode, you can see inside Suzanne's head. Now we're going to mirror this. So let's go add modifier, mirror, and we've got our monkey head back again. Now I mentioned in a previous video that the order matters, and I want you to pay attention to what's happening here at the top when I move this mirror modifier above the subsurface. I'm just going to grab it and drag it, and you'll notice that it is smoothed out. And that is because it's creating the other side of the mesh first with this mirror modifier, and then it's smoothing it out. So the order matters. So that is an important key to remember. And now I'm ready to add in our armature. So our cursor is still at the world origin. I'm going to hit Shift A and then choose Armature. Now remember from the previous video, you might not have this extra sub menu. If you don't, just choose Armature. If you have the Rigify add-on like I do, you just choose a single bone. And now you'll see we've added a bone there. Before we go any further, I'm going to name it. So let's name it Suzanne _rig. And then I'm going to, oops, I spelled it wrong. So I'm just going to click in there and correct my spelling. And I'm going to do the same thing where I double click in there, copy it and paste it there. So now the object names and the data names are the same. Let's fix our viewport. So in the object tab, let's go viewport displays. Let's turn on in front. And while we're here, let's turn on wire so we can see through. Although in object mode, it looks a little bit different. But when we're in edit mode and such, you can see through the bones quite nicely. All right, so we're ready to name the bones. So I actually want to get the names up here to make it a little bit easier. I don't want to turn the name on here because that's the name of the object container. I'm going to turn it on the data level. So under viewport displays, let's turn the names on and we get to see the names of the bones. All right, awesome. So I'm still in edit mode. I'm going to name this bone. I can call it head or main or something like that. I'm just going to call it head. And then I can add in a bone for the ear over here. So I'm just going to position my cursor over here, hit Shift A, and that has created a bone. Boom, there it is. And let's practice using some of the snapping tools. So I'm going to, up here, change this to be the face, so that I can snap to the face. And I'm going to select the tail of the bone and snap it to the kind of the end of the ear here. So I'll have the tail selected, and then hit G to activate grab mode, and then hold down Control, and it's going to activate the snapping. So let's just snap it to the end of the ear. Boom, about there. That's our tail done. And now I'm just going to move this back from the top view using constraining. And then let's try and position it a little bit inside the head. Let's get a little bit of a view. Oh, actually a little bit further in. That looks about right. And now, one thing that's happened is our roll is kind of offset, and you can see it's a little bit skewed. I'll turn the axes on to see what I mean. The x-axis is kind of pointing down at an angle. It's not nice and tidy. So we can actually tidy that up. I want to have the z-axis pointing up, so that well, actually in parallel to this ear, which is actually up, so that when we rotate on one axis, it's going up and down or forward and backwards, rather than moving on two separate axes. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but let me try and show you. So here we are. Let's just go down to local mode and activate my rotate. If we grab the x-axis, it's going on this weird angle. But if we jump into edit mode and then realign this, so I'm going to hit Shift N to recalculate the roll. That's what the shortcut is. I'm going to choose global z-axis, and now my z-axis is kind of pointing up. And if we go back into pose mode and we move it on the x or any one on the z, it's moving on in a logical direction. So that's what we want there. All right, there we go. We haven't named this bone and we haven't parented it, so let's do that. Let's name it first. This is going to be ear.l. And we're going to set up our parenting, but because we're going to do that manually, rather than, the keyboard shortcuts, I'm going to go here to the bone tab, and under relations, you'll see our parent. I can't click in here, and that is because we're not in edit mode. So tab into edit mode, bang, and now we can. So I'm going to just click in here, choose head, and you see my relationship line running from there to there. Right, so that is the one side done. Now, using minimal shortcuts, I'm going to mirror this across to the other side. I'm going to hit W for me to bring up my context menu, or its right mouse button if you're using the default settings. So let's choose Symmetrize, so that is over to the other side. And let's just jump into pose mode and check our work. So when we grab this, both of our ears move along. And this is what we want. Now, while we're here, it's a good thing to point out that when you add in a bone, it adds it in quaternion mode. And for something like this, we don't need to be that fancy. We can just use Euler. So I'm going to select them all. and then use a shortcut. I know only minimal shortcuts. For these ones, I have them all selected. I'm going to hit Control R, and then I can choose the rotation mode. Whoops, I'm going to choose the second one here, which is Euler X, Y, Z. And there we go. So now they're all changed to Euler, and only have 3 channels to animate. Now let's set up our parenting. So we do that on the object level. Now I've already shown you how to do it the short way. So I'm going to show you how to do it the long way. I have my mesh selected. I'm going to jump over to the object tab, and down here under relations, I'm going to click in here, and then I can choose the only other object, which is Suzanne Rig. Boom. That is step 1. We have now added the parenting in. So when we move this object, which is the container object, the armature, the mesh is going to follow along. But as you've already learned, it's still not weighted, so we need to fix that. So over in the modifiers tab on our mesh, we're going to add a modifier and choose armature. And this gets added to the bottom. And notice the red color. The red color means something is not set correctly and it's not going to work. So I'm going to click our button here and choose our armature object, Suzanne Rig. So now we've done that, but there is 0 vert groups to move these bones, and we're going to add them manually. But before we jump over to the data tab and do that, we're going to take a look at our stack again. And we're going to think about it. It's starting going from the top to the bottom, and we're mirroring our half of our mesh from the screen right to screen left across the x-axis. And then we are subdividing that, so creating 4 times as much geometry. And then we are using the armature modifier. Now, this is kind of a wasted resource. If we put this in front of the subdivision surface, it's going to subdivide after the armature modifier. And this is going to be more efficient, so it's going to make your rig faster because it's got 4 times less vertices to deal with. And it's also going to give you a smoother result because it's going to be smoothing out those vertices once they've been moved by the armature. Now I've got the order set. I'm going to jump over into the data tab and add in our vert groups. That's how we're going to move these ears. So I'm going to hit this plus button, and because I've got 3 bones, I'm going to choose add 2 more. So now I have 3 empty groups. They're called group 01, group 02. All right, so the first one here, I'm going to double click and call that head. Now this has to be exactly the same name and spelling as the bones that we want to move. If you spot it incorrectly, or you've got a capital in the wrong spot, it's not going to work. Okay, the next one we're going to do is type in ear.l, and this one ear.r. Now I'll point out before going any further, I'm not actually physically going to weight this vert group here. I'm going to let the mirror modifier do that. But for our modifier to be able to do that, the actual vertice group needs to exist. It can't create a group for you. So when we mirror, if we have values in here, like weights in here, that modifier is going to mirror it over here. But as I said, it can't create it. Yeah, so what am I talking about? So I'm talking about this mirror modifier. If you click down here in the data, you'll see we are going to mirror the vertex groups as well. We can disable this if we want, but that's not the effect that we want for this demonstration. So let's just shrink that up again. And now we're going to weight paint. So we do that in another mode. I'm just going to bring up my mode menu here, and we're going to choose weight paint. And now you can see if I select this, no weights are going to appear. We're going to add them. Now I'm just going to choose the add brush for now. I'll give you a better demonstration of weight painting later. We're just going to jump in head first now. So I'm going to hit F to make this bigger. And the weight that I want to draw is 100%. Now it's important to remember I can't paint anything over this side, and that is because those vertices are not real. Only this side on the right-hand side is going to be real. So I'm going to paint everything. This is paint it, paint. I want it to be red, which is 100% in the middle, and I want to leave out the ears. So click, 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 click. Click, click, click. Click and drag. All right, so that is my head. Whoops, missed something there. And let's just try and get a little bit smoother here. Yep, there we go. Just click, 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 click. Clicking. There we go. That's good enough for now. So that is our head weighted. So if I jump back into object mode and then select our armature and go to pose mode, you'll see that it's following along with the head. And that is part of the work. Now let's do the same thing. So jump back into object mode, select our mesh, and then jump into weight paint mode. And I want to select this ear here. So I can select it over here, and now I can weight paint. So I'm going to just paint them 100% as well. And then we're going to blur the connection. That's good there. Something like that. So let's test out our work. I'm selecting our armature, and we're just going to go ooh, boom, boom, boom. So there we go. We've weight painted our head. Let's do a little bit of tidy up. I'm going to jump back into weight paint mode, and let's blur these out. And actually, I'm going to turn on auto normalize. I'll explain that feature when we talk about weight painting properly. But for now, this is going to help tidy it up. I'm going to choose a blur brush. So let's just blur this section here, blur it out, blur it out, blur it out to make it a nice smooth connection. So there we go. That's good enough for this demonstration. So we have weighted our monkey. Now here's a moment of truth. I haven't done any weight painting over to this side, but if we move our ear, it's automatically going along. And that is because of this mirror modifier that we set up before. Now if we have these in the wrong order, let's just say I drag the armature modifier to the top now and then try and move this. You'll see, okay, it's not working as expected because the order of the stack is incorrect. So let's fix that again. So let's put our mirror modifier first, then our armature modifier, and then we're going to smooth that out with our subdivision surface. So there you have it. You have just rigged a monkey head the long way. So I hope you found it useful to know how to do things manually for those situations when things break and you need to fix them. It's much easier to make mistakes and learn from them in a simple project like this, rather than trying to do that when things get even more complicated. But remember, if you do run into problems, it's a couple of things to check is to make sure that you've spelt things correctly. It won't work unless the vert group names match the bone names exactly. And if you are mirroring the vert groups from one side to the other, make sure that that vert group that you're mirroring into actually exists, because the modifier won't create it for you. All right, so have fun and good luck.